I've been waiting for this show for a long time. And I'm going to tell you why. There he is, Mr. Larry Thompson. I'm going to tell you why. Because in 1980, when I was living in Boston, and I was having a nice life, I started an import-export jewelry business. I made quite successful. I traveled all around the country, going to trade shows, and I was in show business, I guess, from 1976 on, because I traveled to LA and Chicago and Atlanta and New York doing trade shows. And I loved it without even realizing I was in show business. Of course, I was in show business. But that started winding down in 80. And then one day I was watching 60 Minutes. And I was wondering, what was I going to do with my life? I really had no idea. I knew I was either in my prime at 28 years old or heading towards it. And I see this 60 Minutes show, and this fellow named Jay Bernstein gets out of a limousine with Farrah Fawcett. Well, I thought my head was going to do a little bit of an explosion there because the bells were going off in my head, and I said, wow, that's what I want in my life. That's part one. Part two, around that exact same time, there was a writer's strike, and I'm sure you remember 80, it couldn't have been any later than early 81, there was a Hollywood writer's strike. And when that happens, everything shuts down. Everything shuts down. And a couple of the guys who went to school in Boston came back east, and I didn't know them myself, but they were friends of friends. And for the next couple of weeks, we partied. We had a great time. We went out nightclubbing, and we became really good friends. And towards the end of that time together, they said, so what are you doing? I said, my business is winding down. I really don't know what to do next. They said, come out to LA. David Auerbach was one of the guys. Come out to LA and we'll see what we can do to help you, whatever. And I said, that's it. Jay Bernstein coming out of that limo with Farrah Fawcett and these two guys telling me to come out to LA. That's all I needed. I packed everything up and I got into my car and I drove out to Los Angeles from Boston. And my buddy picked me up the next day, took me over to the Improv. He said, you want to be in show business? Here's where you're going to live. And that's exactly where I stayed for the next several years. And so, indirectly, Mr. Larry Thompson, I owe it to you because your partner, Jay Bernstein, I can't imagine two more powerful players in the Hollywood scene than Larry Thompson and Jay Bernstein. And that's why I came out to LA. And I even joined the Personal Managers West. And I know I saw you there. And I just got so involved. I had some great friends there. And that was the beginning of my show business career. And again, I want to thank you for being a major part of how that all happened.
Well, that's great, Bruce. That's great. And Jay and I were partners for quite some time and had a lot of fun and made a lot of history with the clients that we represented. And it was a great time. So I'm glad in some way we inspired you because you bring a lot of positive energy. You bring a lot of excitement. You bring a lot of charisma and tinsel to what you are involved in. So you were another addition to the Hollywood firmament of stars.
I really appreciate that very much. And I do remember from some of the material you sent me that Jay was the sizzle and you were the steak.
Well, that's what we called ourselves, and that's how we worked. Jay was flamboyant. He had previously been a press agent, and I was pretty much a lawyer and about getting the deals done and getting everything straight. So Jay was the barker out front, and we signed quite a few people and represented them together for a long time.
So before we go into that, I want to know who Larry is. And sometimes I say, I want to know who little Larry was. So tell me about your upbringing, where you were born, where you were brought up.
Well, midnight, Robert Johnson is standing at the crossroads of highways 61 and 49. He nods in agreement and sells his soul to the devil for a guitar. And according to legend, right there in Clarksdale, Mississippi, that's where the blues was born. And so was I. I was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. But my mom wasn't as impressed with the story as I was. She kept saying to me, Larry, there's nothing in this town you want. You got to grow up, get educated, and get out of here. I don't want you standing on your feet all day long in that grocery store like your dad. You got to go out to Hollywood. She used to read these photoplay magazines. And she said, you see these people, they're important out there in Hollywood. And I want you to get up and get educated and go out there to Hollywood and meet all these important people and become important one day yourself. She says, get out of this town. This town is nothing but a graveyard with streetlights. So I guess I took her word. I did get educated. I graduated from law school and got in my black Oldsmobile with $700 with all my clothes on a rack. And I had convinced the law librarian to subscribe to this thing I heard called Variety that was about show business, and you would read about it. And I'd get Variety every Friday that's on a stick in the library, and I'd start reading it from cover to cover. And then I'd go to Leslie's drugstore and get pictures of who represented this person, who represented that person, and clipped it to the index cards that I was keeping. So I taught myself show business with index cards and Photoplay magazine in Clarksdale, Mississippi, never having known anyone in the business. So I packed up my index cards and my clothes. And after I graduated law school, I drove 3 days to the corner of Hollywood and Vine. And I got there about 10 o'clock at night. It was pouring down raining. And I looked up at the Capitol Records building and just started crying because I knew that I had arrived. This is where I was supposed to be. This was what I was going to do with my life. And that's where it started.
Wow. So what does someone do when they find themselves standing on the corner of Hollywood and Vine? What do you do next?
Well, I didn't know. I not only had I never been to California when I got there, I had never met anyone who had been to California. So I was there at the right place, but knew nothing. I did have one thing. My mom used to go to the beauty parlor every Thursday in Clarksdale, and she sat next to this woman who knew a woman in Memphis, Tennessee, who was distantly related to Danny Thomas. So this woman in the beauty parlor writes me a to whom it may concern letter that when I get to Hollywood, I'm going to show this to Danny Thomas, if I could ever get to him or find him, and let him know I knew the Gaddis family in Memphis, Tennessee. That was, in addition to my law school degree, my big moment. So I started looking for Danny Thomas and trying to make some money to stay out there. So I clerked for a couple of lawyers just to make some hourly wages. And I found Danny Thomas's sister, who in turn introduced me to somebody who eventually got to meet Danny Thomas. And Danny Thomas introduced me to a couple of people, and we became friends, and I became friends with his family and his daughters and son, Tony. Um, but that never really went anywhere other than it gave me a comfort zone that I was around a star. I mean, Danny Thomas at that time was a star.
He was the biggest.
Oh, he was huge. Uh, so, I started making a little progress. And next thing you know, Uncle Sam calls me, and I wound up at Fort Dix, New Jersey, in the Army as a Army reservist. And the Army, being as smart as it is, and being a lawyer from California, they decided I should be a cook. So I learned to cook in the Army. And then after my 6 months at Fort Dix, I moved out to California. And back to California. I then was studying the legal aspects of the entertainment industry at USC at night. And this guy from Capitol Records came one night to lecture named Elliot Shawn. And I was just really interested. I was interested in music also. And of course, after he lectured, I asked a couple of stupid questions while he was talking, followed him out to his car, hung on to his pants leg, and just started begging this guy for a job. He says, well, have you taken the California bar? I says, no, but I'm studying for it now. He says, well, you're a little young, but when you pass the bar, why don't you give me a call? Let's see what we can do. So I finished studying for the bar, and I passed it, and I called him. He says, yeah, it's just not the right time. So I wound up taking some job downtown in an accounting firm, handling entertainment clients. That's as close as I had gotten. And then one day I get a call from Elliot Shawn saying, we have an opening here. And I says, and I'm in a phone booth. And I said, I'll be there tomorrow. And sure enough, I went to Capitol. And my mom and dad said, are you sure? You got a job downtown? And I said, no, this is why I came here. And I started there at Capitol as an in-house lawyer, taking work off of other people's desks. I was there from morning to night. This is all I could live for. I would talk to everybody. And then I realized that Sal Iannucci, who was president of Capitol, got there every day about the exact same time, right about 9. And the lobby was always bustling and full, but he would take the elevator up to his top floor. But I arranged it that coincidentally, I was about to get on the elevator when he got on the elevator. So the first day he gets on the elevator, I come into the elevator and I start talking. Mr. Iannucci, I'm Larry Thompson. I'm from Mississippi. I'm in the legal department. I love music. I think Capitol is great. Whatever. I'm going to be here forever. But he looked at me like, what the hell? Anyway, the next day we get on the elevator. Mr. Iannucci, I'm Larry Thompson. We talked yesterday. I'm from Mississippi. I'm in the legal department. So Monday of the following week, this went on every day that week. I said, Mr. Iannucci, he says, I know your name is Larry Thompson. You're from Mississippi. I said, yeah, and I'm in the, he said, what do you want? I said, I want to be in the business, Mr. Iannucci. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I'm smart, but I don't know anybody. He says, come up to my office. So suddenly I'm going up to the executive office in Capitol Records. Everybody's looking at me. I just been there 3 weeks. And he said, tell me about yourself, just like you're asking me now. So I started telling him. He said, well, do you like music? I said, I love music. I said, I love Capitol Records, but you guys have the Beatles. I know you guys have Frank Sinatra, now Martino and Peggy Lee, the middle of the road, beautiful music. But the Beatles now, Capitol distributes it, and I know you get it from Apple, the record company, and EMI in England, who distributes it with you guys. I said, but the future is the Beatles. The future is songwriters, singers, young people. He says, why don't you join me? He says, we go out with the A&R to people, and we sign these new acts, and some of my lawyers here are a little older. They don't get these dope smoking songwriter, long haired artists that we're dealing with. Maybe you can communicate with them. So sure enough, I started going out with the A&R guys and Sal, and meeting managers and agents and artists, and signing them and doing their contracts and getting to know them. And there was a guy in the A&R department who was just the coolest guy. His name was Maury Lathauer. He had been a former jazz musician. And I'd say, Maury, I just love this. I said, but I got to get more in the show business. Being a lawyer is great, but I got to get more. I got to get. I said, how do I do it? He says, just keep hanging. I said, what? He said, just keep hanging. Well, I never was in the progressive jazz, and I didn't know what that meant. He says, just keep hanging. So, sure enough, a couple of years goes by. I'm working. Of course, I made everybody in the legal department furious because I had just gotten there. And next thing you know, I was the president's pet, and I took a lot of ribbing and got a lot of aggravation for that. But I was doing what I was destined to do. So I get a phone call from Sal one day, and he says, Thompson, get up here. I said, oh, shit, I'm going to get fired or something. So I go up. He said, look, it's going to be announced tomorrow that the Beatles are breaking up.
Ooh.
We have them signed through Apple EMI as a partnership. They're breaking up. I want someone to make sure we have 4 solo artists under contract.
Wow.
I want 4 Beatles.
Wow.
So I'm putting you in charge legally, meeting with them and their representatives, and you're assigned the task on behalf of Capitol of getting me 4 signatures on 4 solo artists so that we can continue with each of these guys.
Wow.
Well, boy, that was a moment where I started traveling, meeting, dealing with 4 guys who were in the middle of a breakup. And of course, that's not a great time. There was anger, there was sadness. A couple of them had new girlfriends, Yoko Ono and Linda Eastman was Paul's girlfriend and then future wife. And through that period of eventually getting 4 signatures on 4 separate contracts as 4 Beatles, I made a name for myself, certainly in the entertainment, primarily music business. And things, really were big and important at that time. And I remember the first solo album we got, and we're in the 70s now, 1970, was Paul McCartney album. And the problem was, as good as it was, maybe I'm amazed, he claimed that his wife, Linda Eastman, had written the songs. The publishing deal hadn't been settled with the Beatles, and he didn't want to share the publishing royalties with the guys. So they were trying to claim that Linda wrote the songs.
Oh, okay.
And then we had to get a musicologist and go to court, and we agreed to release the album but hold the music royalties in escrow until a decision was made. And of course, it was determined that Paul McCartney, in fact, wrote the songs, and we got it worked out, but we got the album out. But the next moment was the most emotional and seminal moment in my life that I can remember is that I had become close with George Harrison. And I get a call from George saying, hey, I'm in town and I want to deliver my solo album. But I want to play a couple of things for you first. I said, okay. I says, why don't you come on in and meet me in Studio A here at Capitol, and we'll take a listen. So sure enough, he shows up with acetates, and he says, look, I think this is the single. I don't know. It's different. but I like for you to listen to it. So, the name of the album is All Things Must Pass. But listen to it and tell us what you think. Because, well, look, I said, let me bring a couple of the A&R guys down, which I did. So it was the three of us, and it was George. And he puts the song on, nervous as to what we were going to think and whether he thought it was the single. And it was My Sweet Lord.
Oh, boy.
To sit there and hear, I really want to love you.
Oh, boy.
To hear George Harrison singing My Sweet Lord, Hare Krishna. It was one of probably the most emotional moment in my life. And throughout the song, hearing it for the first time and being the first person to hear it for the first time, I just broke down and cried, looking at George, who was nervous about whether it was good. And I couldn't even hold it together. It was the most powerful moment in my life to hear My Sweet Lord by George Harrison.
And your mama would have been proud.
She would have been very proud because I had met some important people by now. And Sal got fired for whatever reason. The rose was off the bloom. I mean, the bloom was off the rose. I had met three wonderful guys, lawyers, and we left and opened up a law firm called Thompson, Shapeman, and Bond, where we would represent talent. And that was a big moment too. I got a call saying, Larry, I know you've left Capitol, and I know a guy out there who knows a guy who needs a record lawyer. And I told them you're the best. You negotiated the Beatles and you were at Capitol and you knew everything in record business. And this guy, he didn't have much, but I know he's got a lot of talent. So I suppose have him call me and set an appointment, come in and meet. So one day my partner and I, Ned Chapman, gone to lunch. We came back, and sitting in the lobby of the reception room was this big, heavy-set black man with wire hair and an overcoat and bedroom slippers sitting on the floor.
Oh, boy.
So he says, I'm looking for Mr. Thompson. I said, I'm Larry. He says, I got to see you, Mr. Thompson. I hear you're the best record lawyer there is. And I recorded this tape, and I want you to listen to this tape. I need the best lawyer. I need a lawyer. I says, well, come on in. So he says, I know Billy called you about me meeting with you, and he says you're the best lawyer there is. I want you to represent me. I says, look, Barry, I said, you have to pay $5 just to open up a folder here. Nobody represents anybody free. He said, $500? That'll open me up to $5. I said, yeah. He says, look, Mr. Thompson, the only thing I have of value in the world is this tape with my music on it. I'll be back for $500, and you're going to be my lawyer. I said, okay, great. So he leaves. I put the tape on, and I hear the deep, melodious voice of Barry White. And I just...
Oh, my God.
I'm going to love you, love you, love you.
Oh, my God.
I've got so much to give to you, my dear. It's going to take a lifetime. It's going to take years. And I heard this. Well, I tried to get in touch with the guy. I didn't know how to get in touch with him. Well, anyway, 4 days later, in comes Barry White. 5 wadded up $100 bills in his hand. He lived in South Central LA.
Woo.
And he had walked in his bedroom slippers from South Central LA to Sunset Boulevard, where my office was. And on the way, because all he had was these $500 bills, he stopped in a Westward Ho grocery store where they had these barbecue chickens under the sun lamps. And he stole the barbecue chicken, and he ate the barbecue chicken, and he walked into my office with barbecue on his hands and $500
My God.
in his hand. And he says, "You're my lawyer." I said, "Barry, I listened to your album. I tried to reach you." I says, "If I'd listened to the album first, I'd loaned you $500. So sure enough, I signed him, and I shopped his album and on the tape, took it to Russ Reagan at 20th Century Records at that time, and got Russ to listen to it, and he wasn't sure. But it was about Christmas time, and they had a Christmas party. And at the Christmas party, Russ had invited Elton John. So Russ was playing the tape in his office while the party was going on. Elton goes into Russ's office and he's listening to the tape. And he says, "Russ, what's this?" He says, "Oh, that's a guy somebody's trying to." He says, It's unbelievable." Russ said, "Yeah, you think so? I know the songs are long. They're very long. I don't know how radio's going to." He says, "It's great." So Russ signs Barry White. And of course, it became history. The whole world changed with Barry White and disco music and his sound and Love Unlimited.
Love Unlimited, my favorite album.
Unbelievable. Walking in the Rain with the One I Love and the love theme. So we wound up, I represented Barry for about 17 years.
Wow.
We traveled the world. We opened up every disco, and from France to Venezuela to London to, it was the most whirlwind period with the great maestro Barry White. And then, at the law firm, I signed Sonny and Cher, and our law firm became quite a stellar firm with the musical talents that we were representing, the movie stars that we were representing, everybody from Linda Lovelace to Richard Pryor. So I'm about to sign Richard Pryor because he was a star, and I wanted to represent Richard. So I meet with him, and I lay out this 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. We're going to do this, Richard, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we'll do an album, we'll do a thing, we'll do some movies, and blah, 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 and we laid it out. And he said, he listened to me. He said, "Well, Larry, that's all great. But what the fuck do we do Monday?" So I got a big laugh out of that, and I realized, yeah, what are we going to do Monday? And I signed him, and then we had a lot of great Mondays. At that time, I also, as I said, was representing Sonny and Cher. The Sonny and Cher show, the Sonny show, the Cher show, the Sonny and Cher divorce show. I had gone through many permeations of their lives and what they were going through. And they finally broke up for the last time. And Sonny was friends with a guy named Lee Majors, who was on a show called The $6 Million Man. And I used to have every Thanksgiving lunch with Sonny at his home. And this particular Sunday, I had been representing a guy named Jay Bernstein, who was a publicist. He was a PR guy primarily. And he was a great publicist. I mean, he really knew how to make someone famous. That's what he was in the business for doing. And I was representing him, and we were sort of talking about maybe getting into business together. I had also just then signed a guy named Jim Neighbors.
Wow.
Golly. And of course, being from the South, we made a connection. And that Thanksgiving, I took Jay to Sonny's house, and Lee Majors was there. And of course, Jay wanted to sign Lee Majors. He really wanted to sign Lee Majors. He was a $6 million man. And Lee wasn't that interested, but he said, I got a girlfriend here who was Farrah Fawcett. by the way.
Oh my God.
Totally unknown.
Oh,
Totally unknown. She had just done a commercial for balsam shaving cream with uh, the football player. I forget his name right now. Played for the
Joe
Giants.
Namath?
Joe Namath. Joe Namath. He says, "Look, I'll sign with you guys, but you got to represent my girlfriend free. You know, I'll pay you guys the normal fee, but you got to take her on too." So Jay said, "Oh, okay, okay." Well, of course, you know, only how show business works. Farrah was just the it girl if there ever was one.
The ultimate. The ultimate.
And Jay knew how to get her on covers of magazines. And along comes Charlie's Angels,
Oh,
and all the covers of the magazines. And he really spent a lot of effort and time on her while we were building a company. And we signed many people, starting with William Shatner. I mean, literally, we built a roster of clients that was huge. And, Cicely Tyson, Sally Kellerman, David Gooden. I mean, it's just blew up on us. It blew up. I left the law firm. We partnered. We had a management company representing talent. And at one time in People magazine, where they had the 10 most beautiful girls in the world, I think we represented 8 of them.
wow.
From Donna Mills to Linda Evans. It was just wonderful. And Jay and I had a great time, and we agreed. He was the sizzle, I was the steak, and that turned out to be a lot of fun.
Let me ask you a technical question
Yeah.
that not a lot of people would know because again I was a manager and I was also an agent for stand-up comedians. I've explained it before, but I'd love to hear it from you. The difference between an agent and a manager, and what kind of fees would an agent and the manager get, even when they get really big?
Well, an artist meets a manager, and the manager says, "What do you want to do? I want to sing, I want to dance, I want to act. You want to do comedy, you want to do drama, you want to do TV, you want to do movies. What is it your dreams? What is it that you want?" And then based on what they want and our evaluation of them, we then decide who their agent should be. The agent's job is to get you a job, but we want to find an agent who specializes in what you want to do. Just like if you want to build a home, but you want a Tudor home versus a modern home, you hire architects who specialize in Tudor homes instead of modern art. So we know how to put a team around a talent relative to an agent whose job is to get a job, to the PR person, how to promote that talent going into that direction, to a lawyer, to an accountant. And we, as the manager, oversee this assembled team to represent this talent whose job it is to be who they are while we support them in every way.
A dream
The
team.
manager orchestrates, oversees everyone in it, and an agent is one of the people in the team whose job primarily is to get a job. And of course, which job? And of course, how much money should they be paid and how should they be billed, et cetera. So a manager manages the career, an agent, think of a manager as the architect and the agent as the construction operator. Or if you're talking in the world of horses, you know, Bob Baffert is the manager who brings on a jockey to ride the horse. So the structure is that way. So there's a big difference between a manager and an agent. But later, speaking of managers and agents and lawyers and all the things that we do, I had met 2 wonderful guys, lawyers, who I subsequently partnered with, and we bought a company called New World Pictures.
Oh,
And we started running a studio, which we took public. I then became a big shot. I was a studio owner at the time. And Jay continued to work primarily in the management and PR business. But at that time, from coming from Mississippi to arriving at the corner of Hollywood and Vine on August 23rd, 1968, but who remembers details like that? I realized that up until this point, I had done a sprint to stardom. And I really wasn't that happy, if you can believe it or not. I was now running a studio and had represented all these people. But something, and I'd gotten married along the way. Jim Neighbors had a girl singing in his show called The Neighbors Kids, and she was beautiful, and I married her. And Jim, who I represented over 10 or 15 years, I met a lot of people through him. In fact, I met Sonny and Cher through Jim. And Roger Miller, who I met, who was probably one of the funniest guys. I mean, I know you do comedy and you know all these guys. Roger Miller, king of the road.
wow.
One of the funniest guys. I remember
Wow.
one night in Nashville, I was hanging with him. I'm hanging now, like Maury Lathau used to tell me. And he was smoking. I was smoking a little. And he said, I'm so high I could go duck hunting with a rake. I thought, Jesus, okay. The next thing you know, I looked at him. He's staring at the wall in front of him. There was a thermostat, room thermostat. And he looked at it and he says, wow, 70. I've lost 100 pounds. So he thought he was looking at a scale. And he used to just tell jokes all the time, this old boy walked into a blacksmith shop and the blacksmith was pounding this hot horseshoe. And the old boy standing there just looking at the blacksmith and the horseshoe. And blacksmith said to the old boy, don't touch that horseshoe because it's going to burn. Walks away. Old boy stares down, reaches down, picks up the horseshoe and drops it real fast. And the blacksmith guy says, burnt you, didn't you? He says, no, just don't take me long to look at a horseshoe. So Roger was constantly full of innocent humor, but light humor and funny humor and humor that I recognized because I came, from that area. Of course, my taste in humor changed as life went on. And, Richard Pryor was a different thing.
Oh, boy.
But we started New World. We built a company. I sold out of it and realized that what I really liked more than anything after full circle was representing stars and making stars and building stars. So because when you run a studio, you might as well be selling shoes. You're interested in your quarterly report, what the stock is doing, what the shareholders are doing. You got to get movies out. Sometimes you release movies and I hadn't even seen them. It's really running a business at that time. And I liked being on the set and being friends with the actors and stars and being close to them. And I always had a nurturing relationship with talent. I was always close to them. I understood their dreams, I understood their wants, and I would dedicate myself to that. And, eventually I had represented over 250 stars over many years, all of them names that you would know. So I understand the psyche of an actor or a singer or one who's striving to be famous or acclaimed. So I went back to representing talent. Jay had passed away, and then built another management company and hired some great managers and built a big company doing that. I then had an epiphany. And that was, I had represented all these wonderful people who I understood who they were. I knew their talent, and I had led them, guided them, helped them get to stardom, etc. And I met a guy who I liked, and I believed in him. And I knew that he was going to always pay me, and he wasn't going to leave. He respected what I had to say. And I decided I was going to sign. And I signed me. I decided that I was going to do for me what I did for other people.
Wow.
And that moment where I went from representative to talent, represented by Larry Thompson, changed my life.
Wow.
Because now, from representing all the talent that I did, I then focused on me. I used to come to work with a piece of paper and a pencil, and I'd write down the name of every star I was representing, what I was going to do for them this day or this week. And at the bottom, I'd write down my name and something maybe I wanted to do for me. I never got to me because I was busy doing all this other stuff. So I changed when I decided to sign me. And the first name I wrote on the paper every day was Larry Thompson.
Wow.
And I started managing Larry Thompson.
Wow.
And I produced 26 movies, 4 feature films.
Wow.
Signed many more stars, built a company again, and focused on the difference from being a representative of talent and being talent. And that was a huge moment of understanding the difference. And that was the next level, because I know you were interested. Well, Larry, how do you go from Mississippi at the graveyard with street lights, not knowing anyone in show business and not having met anyone in California? How do you go from there to being inducted into the Personal Managers Hall of Fame and receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Talent Managers Association, to being in Who's Who in the World, to being knighted in Italy, and to have all these awards and accolades? How did you do it? Well, you know, when my mom says, I bought a red dress in Memphis and I put it under the bed and I'm not going to wear it until you invite me out to Hollywood to see you win an Academy Award. Well, you know, your mom puts a chicken bone in your throat, or puts that responsibility, and you just take off and you do it, and you meet important people. But in my hometown, they made it Larry Thompson Day. It was Larry Thompson Week in Mississippi. The old Paramount Theater, where I used to go to the movies, was turned into the Larry Thompson Center for Fine Arts. I went down there with Alex Haley and Donna Mills and William Shatner, and they raised money for the center that was going to be remodeled and built. And that night, from the audience, I introduced my mom and dad as the most important people I'd ever met. So, and she wore her red dress. So it all just happened by just hanging, like Maury would say. I just hang. And when I decided to represent me, I went through a lot of thought processes in my life, where I had grown so fast and I'd reached a height but I hadn't also, as my mother said, you also have to grow wide and deep. You just can't shoot up because you fall over. And that's sort of what I had done when I reached my height. So I had to back up and rebuild, reboot to become a full person. And it's been a journey. It's been a great one, but it was important. And then, of course, the amount of talent I represented and produced was from Charlton Heston to Joan Rivers, who I signed. And I remember Joan coming to me and she says, "There just nothing is going on. I'm running around the country. I'm working with Don Rickles and we're playing clubs and everything, but I just want to do something different with my career." So we met and I said, "Well, Joan," I said, "look, I can't make you funny, but I can make you more relevant because that's what you have to do. You constantly have to stay relevant. You have been that many times in your life, but now you're just monetizing the residue of your celebrity by making money. You're not involved in something important." And we wind up doing Fashion Police on E. We wind up doing the Comedy Central roast of Joan Rivers. We really revised her career to another level, a relevancy. Youth discovered Joan Rivers, and she was one of the funniest people I ever met. Her jokes were always relevant, but she became relevant. And I'll never forget, she could get away with anything. She could tell the most politically incorrect joke you ever heard in your life, and people howled and loved. I remember she would always talk to the women in the audience and say, "Look, men aren't interested in how intelligent you are. Don't be trying to impress them about how smart you are. Men are interested in one thing. So you're going to waste your time telling them how smart you are." She says, "All I know is I never knew a man who reached under a woman's skirt looking for her library card."
That's Joan.
Well, Joan would get howls. And I would go, "Oh, Joan, my God, are we going to catch hell for this?" But she was funny. She spoke the truth, at least for the time. I mean, look, comedy. Comedy's fashion. It comes in, it goes out. Sometimes you wear a Nehru jacket. Sometimes you don't wear a jacket at all. Comedy, sometimes what's funny then, it's not funny now, and vice versa. But she was always on top, even further. She was on the edge of it. So Joan I represented almost literally right up to the day she died. And we had a great working relationship and time. So, between Richard Pryor and Joan Rivers and Jim Neighbors and Roger Miller and just a lot of funny people in my life, and movies that I produced that starred some very funny people. I liked comedy. I loved music. From My Sweet Lord to I'm Gonna Love You, Love You, Love You, and funny people. Life has been good. Married, 2 children. My daughter's a freshman. She's an NYU Tisch student. She's a
Wow.
Her first movie at 4 was with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman called The Bucket List.
Wow.
She's now 18 and she's a doll. My son's a pianist and at Loyola High School as a sophomore. My wife, Kelly's beautiful and puts up with me. And I have lived the life that I wanted to live, and I think my mother would be proud of, and my dad also. They're both, of course, in heaven, not here with me now. And by the way, that's a big deal too when your parents die. When your first parent dies, that's big. When your second parent dies, that's huge because you realize in the circle of life, you're probably next. And I must tell you, when I win an award or make another movie or sign another star. Uh, it's important, it's great, but not as important or great as when my parents were alive and I could share it with them. You know, you we all need at times to realize there's a little George Bailey in all of us, and parents are great at doing that. This town isn't great because everybody's in competition with each other here. People don't go around saying, "Oh, you're great." I mean, you say that to an actor if you want to sign them, but you don't say to another manager, "Oh, you're great." You know, I do though. I tell all managers who are great, especially producers or directors, I still have the same awe of show business that I did when I was at Leslie's drugstore, looking at the pictures of Frank Sinatra and his lawyer Mickey Rudin. I love the entertainment business. I love storytelling. I love people sitting quietly in a theater and crying at what they're seeing or being touched or enlightened. It's a wonderful business, and I've been blessed to be a part of it. And when you share, Bruce, interesting enough, sometimes when I hear you talk, and when you were kind enough with the opening words up front, you too, and it's obvious, have an awe and a love for show business and people in the entertainment business. I can tell just by your body movement, the way you speak, and that's something that you can't fake. Either you do or you don't. I mean, a lot of people don't like the entertainment business, think that, you know, all actors are flakes and all they want to do is to tell you their political views and think they're better than you and who cares about what they say. Well, yes, that's good, bad, right, wrong, but they're actors, they're singers, they're gifted, they're talented, they're the muse. They're there to entertain and educate and enlighten. And what a wonderful industry with unique people that I embrace and love and am thrilled to still be a part of. So when people say, "Well, Larry, what you doing? What are you up to?" And of course, I always say, "Well, I'm between movies, I hope." Because, you know, when you're making a movie, it doesn't guarantee you're going to. I made 26, and I don't know if I'm ever going to make another one. I'm developing a bunch of them. I sure want to make them. I'm pitching them every day. I'm out there, but you never know. This business is risky. You know, this is a high wire act, and you better be good every day because what you did last week is not relevant anymore. So you try to stay relevant, you try to stay fun, and you can only do that if you genuinely have an awe of our industry and the talent that's in it. And God has blessed me with that yearning and that constant interest in it and the ability to just keep hanging. So I'm still hanging today.
You know, I so appreciate, first of all, the time that you've given me, but it's not just given me, because what's going to happen from this show, and my goal is to get as many people to learn about the entertainment industry. Your insights about me is so right on. If I could just share a couple more minutes, I know we've been here a while. I got out there in 81. And my mom had a sudden stroke and passed away in 86. And it just changed everything in my mind. I might have told you that I didn't share a particular dysfunction with anyone. I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a drug addict or a drug dealer. And I can go on. But my joke is I didn't fit in anywhere except for the improv. That we were all family. But there was so much dysfunction with relationships and girlfriends that wasn't happening. I decided to leave. And I left for 10 years. And I remember the story about a gentleman, a comedian named Rodney Dangerfield, who left the business for 10 or 11 years, sold aluminum siding, and then went back again to start doing comedy. And look what happened to him. So I left for 10, 11 years. I went back again, and only because of my love for the business, it didn't quite work out for whatever reason. I tried screenwriting, and then I stepped away again for 20 or 30 years. And now, you're so right, my love for the business, my love for comedy, and my ability to connect with incredible people like you to share what show business is like, that nobody else would be able to tell that story. So I hope that having you on the show, one way or another, tens of thousands of people will be able to see this show and learn how terrific the industry is. It's got a bad rep now, but that's only a few people. With incredible people like you leading the way, that's why show business is as great as it is and will continue to be.
And think about this, Bruce. You're hosting your own television show. It's not like you quit. Living in LA or not isn't in the business or not. You're in the business in your head. You can do it from Florida, Alaska, Hawaii, Santa Monica, Pasadena. You can do it anywhere. You have a showbiz mind. You have an appreciation for talent. You now have become a conduit for talent to the world. So you are contributing in a very, very big way. So be proud of what you're doing, and I know you are, but know that you're in it. You're hanging and don't even know it. So just keep hanging.
God bless you, Larry. I've taken an hour of your time to the minute. I know how busy you are. I can't believe you spent an hour with me. God bless you. I appreciate it. Have a great day. And you've shared so much of your life, the intimate moments, and I couldn't have expected any more.
Well, keep shining, Bruce Starr.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you again for watching 80s Golden Age of Comedy. Thank you, Larry Thompson. Bye-bye, everybody. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. I've been told by a lot of the comedians I knew and represented during the 80s, I looked the same as I did 40 years ago. And come to think of it, I still have my thick brown hair and just a few wrinkles. But most importantly for me, by simply applying the completely safe human growth hormone homeopathic gel on my skin just 2 times a day, the depression and panic attacks I suffered from years ago were gone in just 2 weeks. And then I started deep sleeping for many hours at night. You know, you can have the gel work for you too. To find out more, contact me at bruce@brucestarproductions.com.